Venom is a Marvel villain and occasional anti-hero defined almost entirely by his unending obsession with bonding, both metaphorically and literally, with everybody's favourite friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man. An obsession, it turns out, is partly the fault of Deadpool.
What actually is the deal with Venom being so obsessed with Spider-Man?
It was established in Marvel canon that Spider-Man was the first known host that the Venom symbiote bonded with, and it subsequently became obsessed with Spider-Man because it believed him to be its perfect ideal host.
That's all fine and dandy, Karl, but don't you mean the Venom symbiote?
Oh, fuck off with that, Sony Pictures. Put the clip in. It's so annoying. Every piece of Spider-Man fucking fiction pronounce it the symbiote. Oh, it's the symbiote, is it? Because it's symbiosis, the word. And they put in the word, symbiote.
We call them symbiotes. Carlton Drake believes that the union between human and symbiote is the key to our evolution.
We make it different, we Sony. Symbiote.
How did Spider-Man and the
Symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures.
How did they end up meeting?
Well, in the original canon, Spider-Man and the symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, met during a storyline called Secret Wars, during which Spider-Man is transported to an alien planet where he just stomps a bunch of alien dickhole for a couple of hours. And during the fight, he notices that his costume is all torn to shit. And he asks the other heroes with him, is there anywhere I can get a new costume on this alien planet? And Thor, and for some inexplicable reason, the Hulk, tell him that on this alien planet, there is a machine nearby that can perfectly recreate new clothing. Despite being described in Marvel Comics as a super hyper mega genius, Spider-Man inexplicably walks over to a machine containing a violently psychopathic alien life form instead of one that makes clothes. But hey, we've all been there, right?
I get the comics are a bit dumb.
Oh yeah.
But the whole origin of Venom, who is arguably one of the coolest characters.
Oh, Venom's fucking awesome.
Is because Spider-Man sat in the wrong machine.
No, he walks over to the machine that he thinks makes clothes, presses a button, and this evil-looking gelatinous black orb appears and he touches it. Because that's what you do when you're a genius. You touch things on an alien planet you don't understand. And it just immediately encases his body and creates the black costume. My favourite bit is though, Spider-Man doesn't question it for fucking ages, despite the fact that he's just seen Thor and the Hulk walking away, not wearing black costumes. And it takes him ages to realise that the costume is actually a living, breathing alien life form, despite the fact it seems to react to his will and create civilian clothing and stuff like that.
I like your style. But it would be nice if you were a little less conspicuous. You're definitely my kind of suit.
For people that don't know, the Venom symbiote suit...
Trademark Sony Pictures.
Trademark Sony Pictures. The suit gives him additional power, doesn't it?
Yeah, it varies from writer to writer, but most versions of Spider-Man wearing the symbiote trademark Sony Pictures suit show him as having increased speed and strength and also the ability to create a near unending amount of organic webbing, which is really awesome, I think, because it's a trait that the symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, carries on after it attaches to other hosts. And that's the reason why Venom has the inverted Spider-Man symbol on its chest, even when it's infecting other people. Because it sees Spider-Man as being its ideal host, and therefore, as the strongest host it's had so far, takes on more traits from him. And that's why, obviously, it fights so hard to rebond with Spider-Man, because it thinks that's how it becomes the perfect entity.
The more you hate me, the more the symbiote can control you.
Who said we hate you? Fact is, we're your biggest fan.
So what you're saying there is that we can't have the Venom, the classic Venom we all know and love,
yes,
without having Spider-Man as well?
No, because the two characters are intrinsically linked. And even if you want to do a surface level analysis of Venom as a character, even the way he looks is directly informed by the fact he was once bonded with Spider-Man, because that's why he has big white eyes and the white symbol on his chest.
Is that the black suit? Is that my black suit?
Even his power set is informed by Spider-Man, because that's why he still creates web after he's stopped bonding with Spider-Man, because he sees that as being oh wow, that's the trait of the perfect host for me, so I will continue using this.
Such low-grade webbing. Here, have some of mine.
And it'd be really silly for anyone out there to try and make a Venom movie, that didn't have Spider-Man in it, because Venom without Spider-Man is not Venom. It's just some alien goo that bonds with some dickhead. For many years, Venom's obsession with Spider-Man and his general dickishness towards him wasn't really explained, up until a Deadpool comic released in 2015.
Which issue of Deadpool was this?
Deadpool Secret Wars issue number 3, which reveals that Just before Spider-Man met the symbiote trademark Sony Pictures, Deadpool himself momentarily bonded with it.
To be honest, Deadpool with the symbiote trademark Sony Pictures costume sounds awesome.
It is awesome, and Deadpool himself notes this in the comic, and he even comments on the fact that the costume makes his ass look super tight. As awesome as the costume is though, Deadpool almost immediately realises something is amiss when he notices that the suit is trying to actively read his thoughts.
For people who may have only seen the Ryan Reynolds incarnation of Deadpool, reading Deadpool's mind.
Yeah, that's never a good idea. It's established in comics that telepaths in the Marvel Universe actively refuse to read Deadpool's mind. It's just so messed up in there. And Deadpool himself, in that comic, in a rare moment of lucidity, notes that it would be like a colossal dick move to subject that poor alien to like living inside his thoughts, and puts it back where he found it. Thinking to himself for a moment, I sure hope that brief moment it was bonded with me and experienced what it's like to be inside my mind didn't drive it insane. You can probably see where this is going, and about 4 seconds after Deadpool puts the symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, back into the machine he found it, he bumps into Spider-Man, who's looking for the machine the Hulk and Thor mentioned that can repair all of his clothes.
Right, so let me get this straight. The symbiote,
Trademark Sony Pictures,
is insane because it bonded with Deadpool.
It's never explicitly stated that that's the case, but it's heavily implied, and it's hinted at by Deadpool himself, who says, "I sure hope being inside my mind doesn't drive that alien creature insane." And we all know that immediately after that, it bonds with Spider-Man and goes absolutely batshit crazy, and becomes obsessed with bonding what it sees as the perfect host, which now makes a lot more sense considering, as far as we know, the only other creature it's ever bonded with was Deadpool. Let's just try and put ourselves into the shoes of the symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, for a moment here. You're just sat in a machine, chilling, minding your own business, when suddenly, out of nowhere, you are forced to bond with a guy with turbo cancer, and who also has medium awareness, which people don't know is the, I think, official-ish name for Deadpool knowing that he's in a comic book and and can break the fourth wall. That would drive you fucking insane, wouldn't it? Think about that. The Venom symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, as far as it knows, it's just like an alien living in this cool little pod. And then suddenly, it's like its entire worldview is shattered in an instant by bonding with Deadpool, and then is immediately shoved back into the machine.
Wasn't it also supposed to be true that the symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, takes elements of the previous post it's had?
Yeah, and bearing in mind that Deadpool has a very obsessive personality, frequently going obsessive words and phrases, like chimichanga, for example, when he says it randomly for no apparent reason, it stands to reason that the symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, would take on that part of his psyche and become obsessed with Spider-Man. So Deadpool might just be responsible for what Marvel Comics describe as one of the most dangerous villains on the planet. Because Venom is a fucking badass who's a mega level threat to all of humanity.
To think if Deadpool hadn't been there, he could have been a good guy.
It could have been, yeah.
Imagine if the original Venom, or original symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, was actually a genuinely nice creature.
Well, the thing is, though, in some comics, Venom is a good guy. You've got Agent Venom, which I think it takes on. I think Flash Thompson, in the comics, the guy who beats up Spider-Man in school, becomes a Marine or something and takes on the Venom symbiote, trademark Sony Pictures, and use it to fight alien crime. And then you have Anti-Venom, who's a white version, an inverted version of Venom, who's also a good guy, I think.
I thought it was going to be Aunt May then, Anti-Venom.
That'd be awesome. Deadpool, being Deadpool, never thinks to mention this fact to Spider-Man, and as a result, the Wallcrawler is largely oblivious to the fact his most fearsome villain is a direct result of Deadpool bonding with it for about 2 seconds. So nearby Lucas, would you like to do the thing you often do, which is tell the lovely audience at home what the specific topic of today's video is?
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about Kraven the Hunter, who is a man I don't know much about, so yeah.
Like yourself, I don't know much about Kraven the Hunter. I don't even know his real name, which is Sergei Kravinov. That is a fucking name. And I love here as well, there's a quote from him, and I'm not going to read it out, but he's talking about him and Squirrel Girl teaming up. So we have here his name, Sergei Nikolaevich Kravinov, originally Sergei Kravinov. That is a name. That's nice. Sergei Dragunov from Tekken.
Oh, yeah.
And I fucking love it. He's one of my mains. I found out he's super OP and like S tier. It's like, I can't play an S tier character. Got to play those low tier here. Got to play that Giga. So we have here aliases. Are you ready for some fucking band names, mate? The Grim Hunter, the Unhuntable, the Unhuntable, the Beast, the Emperor of the Wild, the Ghost, the King of Lions. These sound like Zelda titles.
Oh man, better than Zelda titles.
The Unhuntable.
That's
a
so
fucking
good.
name. That's awesome. You know what? I just want to know a little bit about Kraven the Hunter because I love the image they use in like early comics where he's there in like the leopard print and the big furs. And I love that image because it's so outdated.
Yes, it is.
Like just wearing like the pelts, and I get it, like, you know, it's that intimidation factor. Like he's wearing the pelts of these wild, dangerous animals. But all I think when I look at someone wearing that now is like, what a dickhead.
I want an updated version where instead of him wearing pelts, it's him wearing just the super suits of like heroes that he's demolished.
You want him to be like Predator with like skulls around his neck, or General Grievous with like 18 lightsabers.
Yeah, I want that Grievous thing of just, you know what? I'm now wearing the arms of Spider-Man and just stuff like that.
Do you know what you should do? You should take really minor things. Like you should go like beat Spider-Man up and then just take like his subway card out. Something like that. Take his web shooters. Don't take that and then his subway card to be a dick. Sergei Nikolaevich Kravinov, and in Russian it's words I can't pronounce, was born and raised in Volgograd, Russia in the early half of the 20th century, during the time of the Russian Revolution. Born into an aristocracy that had come to an end, he became one of the world's greatest hunters to fulfill his sense of lost nobility. It says here that he found great talent after finding employment in Kenya, Africa. He began a career using the typical tools of the hunter, but over time developed a preference to take down large animals with his bare hands. That's a man. That's a man right there. Because I've always said, like, I disagree with hunting on like moral grounds, but if you can kill the animal with your bare hands, that's the one exception I make. So at that point, you want it more. After meeting a voodoo witch doctor, he took a herbal potion which enhanced his physical powers and gave him the strength, speed, and senses to match a jungle cat. He also extended his vitality, which you no doubt want to get to in his powers and abilities section, but that man. That fucking man. Powers and abilities. Chemical/magical empowerment. After Kraven ingested a mythical potion, his physiology underwent several changes, endowing him with superhuman physical attributes. The powers he gained put him, and I quote, on the top of the food chain, as they are greater than even those of Captain America.
Oh.
Kraven is better. I like it just says better. You don't need to say, he says better, stronger, faster. You don't need to say, if you just say better, done. You don't need to follow it up with stronger and faster. That's implied by him being better.
He's harder, faster, and stronger, Carl.
And more cunning than any human. Coupled with his skills, he is a truly dangerous and deadly adversary. And his fighting skills are like a 6, which put him at like up there with like Deadpool and Wolverine. Superhuman speed. Kraven was capable of running and moving at speeds greater than even the finest human athlete. At his peak, he could sprint at 60 miles an hour. Can you imagine it now?
Kraven on the motorway.
He couldn't run on a motorway. He'd actually tell you he'd be speeding on some motorways. But the thing is, he's dressed like a lion. That's what makes it so good. Now, do you know that thing when you're a kid? I think everyone as a kid did this when you were sat in a car and you imagine something running alongside the car. Kraven could just do that. He could be that. And there's probably kids out there who saw him in that world like, man, my imagination's really getting better. Because I think there's actually a dude out there.
Just dressed in a giant jaguar pelt.
Like, just chase. So I'm going to hunt the deadliest games, the fucking Corsa, and just ripping it apart. Extended longevity. Kraven's jungle potions. That sounds like the most non-FDA approved shit ever, doesn't it? Kraven's jungle potions drastically altered his natural aging process, causing him to age much slower than an ordinary human, despite being in his 70s at the time of his death. So he must be dead. Spoilers.
Oh.
Wonder what the fuck killed him. What badass killed him? It says Kraven had the physical appearance and vitality of a man who was just 30 years old, so like basically in the prime of his life at like 70. Immortality. Oh, due to his resurrection.
Of course.
Well,
It's comics, Carl.
That was a short-lived death, wasn't it? He's in a state of immortality. Only Spider-Man is able to kill him, and if anyone else attempts to, he will survive it. However, there is a loophole to this curse, as Kraven is able to die by donning the Spider-Man costume. No. No. This is not real. Equipment, his lion's head vest. Okay, yeah, he wears a lion's head on his vest. Weapons, many weapons. Transportation, the Cravan. Far away, Lucas, as you often do, would you like to let the lovely audience at home know what the topic of today's Wiki Weekends is?
So, I wanted to talk about Otto Octavius, but apparently he's fucking Spider-Man. And then it just said, let's talk about Otto Octavius' duplicate, who's actually Dr. Octopus.
So I'm a big fan of comics in general, but I don't read them all, and I was aware that at some point Otto Octavius became Spider-Man, and that's just a weird thing that happened for a while. So when we tried to find the wiki entry for Dr. Octopus, it just says Spider-Man, and we've already done Spider-Man, so instead we're actually technically talking about Otto Octavius' duplicate, who is just Otto Octavius.
Comic books, Carl.
Comic books, and we'll start as we often do at the beginning with the biographical information of Otto Octavius' duplicate, who for all intents and purposes is just him. So, real name, Otto Gunther Octavius. Man, that's a rough name. That is like playground just catnip right there, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
There's so much to make fun of in all of that. And current alias, Dr. Octopus, and then we have aliases, Doc Ock, which I love. I love it. Doc Ock's so simple, so clean. And I love the idea that one of Spider-Man's greatest villains is just another guy with 8 arms.
Yeah.
Spider, 8 arms, octopus. The symbolism writes itself.
The thing is, though, I'm really annoyed that he isn't called Doctopus.
Doctopus. That's so good, and I've never thought of that, and I'm really mad that I didn't. So, other aliases include the Living Brain, the Master Planner, Spider-Man, Superior Octopus, Superior Octopus is fucking great.
That sounds amazing.
What are you? I'm the Superior Octopus. I don't want to fight that. Relatives, Otto Octavius, and this is how you know it's comics, because he's his genetic and mental template, which just is comic code for he is the same character. Mm-hmm. He's just the same character, but we were bored of not having Spider-Man fight Otto Octavius.
Yeah.
And then we have a base of operations, and it's just a couple of universities, and then we have here the Trans-America Pyramid. I don't know what the Trans-America Pyramid is, but I'm curious. And then we have status, identity, secret identity. Is it really? He's a clone of one of the most well-known fucking villains of all time, who walks around without a mask on and calls himself Dr. Octopus. Citizenship, American. Marital... Wait, do clones have citizenship?
I don't know.
Are they technically born? Anyway, you know what? That's a matter for the courts to decide. Marital status, single. This is one that I like. Marital status of the original Dr. Octopus, he marries Aunt May in one comic book. And Spider-Man's super salty about it.
Yeah.
It's great. Occupation, adventurer, professor, scientist, vigilante, former criminal, government agent, terrorist. And then education, he's got the duplicate mind of Otto Octavius, who has one of the keenest minds in all of Marvel. Besides, the super big brain guys like MODOK and Reed Richards and all those lot. Characteristics, male, height, 5'9", weight, 245 pounds, so he's a bit fat, which I love about Dr. Octopus, that he's not a physical threat.
No, he's
it's
not.
That Lex Luthor thing. I'm going to put my coffee down there, so I'm afraid I'm going to spill it. But it's that Lex Luthor thing where he doesn't need to be a physical threat to be a threat to the hero. And we have origin. He is a human clone, a copy of Otto Octavius' consciousness implanted into his clone body, formally implanted into the new ultimate cloned body known as the proto-clone. What is comic books? I fucking love comic books. And now, as we often do, we're going to read a quote from the character themselves. This is a quote from Otto Octavius' clone, who for all intents and purposes is the character, but he's speaking here as the clone. Then I shall endeavour to exceed your expectations. Let others settle for greatness. I will strive to be superior.
Oh,
that's really good. And Lucas, just thoughts on Dr. Octopus, or Doctopus if you will.
I really like him, and as you said, the idea that somebody is super intelligent instead of a physical threat, I've always enjoyed, because it gets across that Peter Parker side of him.
Yes, because Peter Parker's one of his greatest strengths, besides the fact he's Spider-Man, is his ingenuity and his grit, power and abilities. And we'll begin with the power grid, which people who do not know is a ranking system for Marvel characters from 1 to 7, 1 being an ordinary human, 7 being nigh godlike in that specific regard. For Otto Octavius, everything seems to be in order with the exception of intelligence and durability. His intelligence is a 5, which is very smart, but not as smart as I thought Dr. Octopus would be.
Yeah, it's not, as you say, godlike levels of intelligence where you would imagine he's up there as one of the smartest people in Marvel, but apparently not quite.
Yeah, that's around the same level as Spider-Man, but I figured he'd be up there with Reed Richards and stuff, but no, he's not. And then we have durability is a 7, which basically means he's indestructible.
What?
I want to know what's going on there. Because that means he's had the same durability as a character like the Hulk, and he is, for all intents and purposes, an ordinary human man, albeit a clone.
With some legs, yeah.
And then his energy projection is a 6, which is like up there with characters like Iron Man. So let's find out what's going on, shall we? Powers. So Otto has the same powers as the original Dr. Octopus. So presumably Dr. Octopus always had these abilities. So we have here cybernetic tentacles. And I love the tentacles, they're so fucking cool. Dr. Octopus's superhuman capabilities derive from the 4 mentally controlled, electronically powered, telescoping, prehensile titanium steel tentacles attached to a stainless steel harness encircling his body. Man, that's a sentence. Each tentacle, approximately 5 inches in diameter, terminates in 3 single-jointed pincers. The pincers are capable of rotating in relation to the arm for 360 degrees in a screwdriver-like twisting motion, which sounds awesome, but doesn't explain why he's so fucking OP. It says here that the motors get their power from a small nuclear-powered thermoelectric generator, which can generate several hundred watts per hour for up to 5 years before needing to be replaced. They have been upgraded since the initial accident to include high-efficiency battery packs. In the event that Octopus loses consciousness, the control module in each arm has enough pre-programmed conditional responses in its memory chip to enable it to perform a relatively complex sequence of actions, such as saving his life. And the ultimate example of that is in the arc Spider-Man Reign, I believe, and that's the infamous one where Spider-Man breaks down in tears on Mary Jane Watson's tombstone because he killed her with his radioactive spider jizz. That's a real thing that happens in that comic. And Dr. Octopus's corpse is walking around with his tentacles.
Oh, no.
Because the tentacles are still active, so his corpse is being carried around by the tentacles, and it's so fucking depressing. The trauma of his arms being separated from the harness causes a period of disorientation in which his arms flail about uncontrollably. Yeah, that's kind of scary. It's like wacky, wavy, arm inflatable tube man. And the powers linked to his tentacles include technopathic tentacle manipulation. God, let's pull back the curtain on this. That's the one term I read and when we're doing Dr. Octopus. I read technopathic tentacle manipulation and went, this is it. This is the article we're doing today. Octopus can control the actions of his arms psionically even when they've been severed from his body and they are separated from him by a vast distance. A distance of 900 miles has been recorded. That's terrifying. So Dr. Octopus can be sat 900 miles away and still kick your ass with his super tentacles.
He can just sit at home and send them after you.
Yeah, telescoping. Each tentacle is approximately 6 feet long, but at full contraction can extend to a maximum length of 24 feet. That's not explaining why he's as durable as the Hulk. Superhuman striking force. Each tentacle is capable of moving at a speed of 90 feet per second and can strike with the force of a jackhammer. Lucas. High wind generation. The tentacles can generate 50-mile-an-hour winds if spun like a giant fan. Where was that in the Raimi movie? Wall climbing and travelling. By combining the intrinsic strength of both his tentacles and pincers, Dr. Octopus can scale stone, brick, or concrete walls by rending handholds in the surface. He is able to use his tentacles for traversing horizontal distance as well. At full extension, he can travel high above the ground as if on stilts, either using 2 tentacles or for maximum speed, approximately 50 miles an hour, 4 tentacles. So Dr. Octopus can move at 50 miles an hour with those things.
But Carl, he could just get a giant fan below his feet and move at 50 miles an hour anyway.
I want to see that. I want to see him parasailing with the force generated by his own fans. Sensation feeling. Lucas, we've got to continue. Although there are no nerve endings throughout the length of his artificial arms, Octopus can feel basic sensations with them. As a result of the mutagenic changes from exposure to radiation during the accident, electrical connections have been made from his chest harness to his spine. Thus, Dr. Octopus can mentally perceive tactile sensations by feeling the amount of electrical resistance that the pincers generate on their motors. So he can feel things with his tentacles.
Why would you want that?
I don't think they hurt him. It said here that when they get severed from his body, he doesn't feel pain. He's just disorientated.
I think there's quite a few different characters where they have things like armor or suits, and they programmed it so they can feel the pain the armor does. It's like, why would you ever do that?
Superhuman concentration. Dr. Octopus possesses extraordinary mental capabilities, and through years of practice is able to perform 2 complex and 2 simple independent actions simultaneously, one with each arm. So he can perform 4 different actions at once with each of the arms, 2 complex, 2 simple. So he can make himself a coffee, read the paper, and then simultaneously invent like a time travel machine. Oh, here we go. So living brain. So this is where he became something called the living brain. So as the living brain, Otto had these powers, superhuman strength. As the living brain, Otto was able to analyse the strength of Spider-Man's webbing, decide how much pressure to apply, and then ploughed right through it. Superhuman durability. While stored within the living brain, Otto was able to withstand multiple energy attacks from Parker Industry SWAT bots.
I don't know what that is, but does Spider-Man make himself an army?
He probably does. I think the story is when Dr. Octopus takes over Spider-Man, he realises Spider-Man's a fucking moron. Why does he live in poverty? He's a genius, and he just uses his genius to make Parker Industries, which within the space of like 3 years rivals Tony Stark's. Self-repairing systems. Otto's body, while his mind was hosted by the living brain, was able to use the nanites stored in himself to repair his body when he was damaged. So there it is.
Ah, okay.
He's got nano machine son. And then Superior Spider-Man. Oh god, we've already done Spider-Man 3 times. Let's try and skip past this, shall we? We've done Spider-Man like 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah, because I'm assuming he just has the powers of Spider-Man.
It says here that abilities seemingly those of the original Otto Octavius, which I'm not going to click on because I've got to scroll through all that Spider-Man shit again. So strength level class 10, so that's lifting about a ton. So they're not explaining why he's so durable. I guess it's just because his brain was inside a robot and he can't technically die if his brain is stored inside it, maybe. Weaknesses, arrogance. On many occasions, Otto's pride has been a major factor in his many defeats. Wow, that's rough. He's a clone. Does that mean, does the clone technically have the win-loss record of the original?
Or does he start fresh?
Otto considered himself to be the smartest person on the planet, not according to his power grid. And that he could never be wrong due to his, and I quote, massive intellect.
Oh, God, no.
This confidence in his own intelligence frequently caused him to ignore factors that could derail his plans, leaving him unprepared for when these factors come into play, like Spider-Man.
Well, what I don't get is that he considers himself the smartest person on the planet, but you know who else is? Spider-Man, because he's the same person as you.
Pill dependence. In order to prevent his clone body from breaking down, caused by a flaw in the Jackal's cloning process, I would not trust a clone made by a guy called the Jackal. Otto has to ingest a pill provided by him every single day. Currently, this weakness no longer applies after he managed to implant his mind and consciousness into the proto-clone that was immune to degeneration.
Oh, okay.
And then trivia. Octavius is an atheist. Yeah, I'm not surprised. A fucking clown. If he believes in God, then he definitely doesn't have a fucking soul.
Yeah, they cloned his mind as well. Not just his body, but his actual mind and personality.
And the final one is, Otto's former alias, Elliot Tolliver, has a meaning that reflects his egomaniac personality. Elliot is the Greek form of the Hebrew name Elijah, which means Jehovah is God. This refers to how Otto considers himself superior, sometimes exhibiting a, and I quote, God complex. Tolliver is the English form of the Italian family name, Taliaferro, which itself derives from tagliere, to cut, and ferro, iron. This name was often used as a nickname for metal workers or a fighter. This refers to both Otto's intellect for engineering as well as his fighting skills, thanks to Peter Parker's genes. It's like, can he really consider them his own fighting skills if he learned them from Spider-Man?
Yeah.
J. Jonah Jameson is a comic book character defined by 3 things. His irrational hatred of Spider-Man, his gruff and thorny personality, and that fucking mustache. Despite his outwardly dickish persona, the comics he appears in have established that J. Jonah Jameson is actually something of a softie, although he does admittedly have a hard time showing it.
Yeah, so first of all, people might not really know much about J. Jonah Jameson, apart from just being, from the Spider-Man films.
Yeah, like they might have a passing familiarity with the character, and you can pretty much tell everything the writers want you to know about J. Jonah Jameson by glancing at any comic panel he's ever appeared in, because in almost every single one, he is screaming, usually at Peter Parker, and usually while raising his fist in anger. And because comics aren't a medium known for their subtlety, in almost every single one of his appearances, J. Jonah Jameson is sporting a Hitler tash. Because how else are you supposed to show that he's a dickhead boss besides giving him a Hitler stash? And one of my favourite things about the J. Jonah Jameson Hitler Tash is that it does get brought up in one comic. Spider-Man saves the day alongside the Avengers, and J. Jonah Jameson writes an editorial saying that Spider-Man was causing problems, and Captain America happens to walk past like a newsstand or something like that and sees this story and gets really mad. And he storms into the Daily Bugle headquarters and walks right into J. Jonah Jameson's office. And it should be pointed out that J. Jonah Jameson is a huge fucking fan of Captain America, as many people are in the comics, and has the utmost respect for him. So he absolutely shits himself when the symbol of America itself charging starts his way into his office and tells him to shut the fuck up. And he corrects Jameson by telling him Spider-Man is a good guy. He's not a bad guy. I know what bad guys look like. And he looks directly at the Hitler tash on JJ's face. And in the next panel, JJ appears in. He's not got the mustache anymore. He shaves it off. And while admittedly JJ is a fairly one-dimensional character, some comics have delved into his backstory to a degree. For example, in one comic it is revealed that J. Jonah Jameson was in fact a champion boxer in his youth, and he used these boxing skills to help woo his wife by beating up 3 men at once who were harassing her. Which doesn't really have a lot to do with today's video, but it's just too hilarious not to mention that J. Jonah Jameson wooed his wife by beating up 3 men at once.
Yeah, so what he's mostly known for is the fact he doesn't like Peter Parker.
Yeah, or Spider-Man. Like, he has a thorny relationship with Peter Parker, but he fucking hates Spider-Man, and he seemingly tolerates Peter Parker because he brings in photos of Spider-Man, which he then runs with headlines saying, "Spider-Man, baby eater, ? And shit like that. There is so many, the Spider-Man PS4 game as one of my favourite examples of this, where Peter Parker in that game is no longer working for the Daily Bugle, and if there's a collectible in the world that you can find that's an editorial by J. Jonah Jameson of like a fire or something like that says, "Oh, did Spider-Man cause the fire that killed 5 policemen?" And he's like, "I couldn't fucking work for him anymore." And in that game, Jameson just starts a podcast where he angrily rants about Spider-Man.
So what is it about JJ being a big softie?
Well, like as I said, the relationship between Peter Parker and J. Jonah Jameson is fairly one-dimensional, but it's explored in some comics, such as Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man Annual, issue 1, I think is the exact title. If I'm wrong, there'll be a fact bar below correcting me, or several comments also correcting me. Probably worse spelled. And in that particular comic book, it's revealed that when Peter Parker and J. Jonah Jameson first met, and Peter Parker was trying to sell Jameson some pictures of Spider-Man, Jameson was hesitant to buy them, which makes sense because a lot of them were quite blurry because they were photos of a man in a skin-tight spider-themed outfit flying through the city at half the speed of sound. And one of my favourite things, though, about Peter Parker is that no one ever questions how he gets such good photos. And that always cracks me up because one of the things that's established in the comics and games and films is that Peter Parker will use his spider powers to attach his camera to walls and things like that, so he can get these really great photos of Spider-Man. And no one ever asks him, how did you get this photo of Spider-Man when he's 300 foot in the air? Oh, big lens. So to bring it back to the Spider-Man comics, Jameson was hesitant to buy any photos from Parker because they weren't very good. Presumably because Parker was early in his career at that point. However, during a routine background check on Peter Parker, he discovered that his uncle had died, very recently, and he felt bad for him. He's like, oh no, this young kid, his uncle's died. He's like, his auntie's looking after him. The poor guy probably needs a break, so he decided to buy the photos from him just so that, it would raise his confidence and give him just a little bit of an ego boost. Then you've got the Civil War story arc where Peter Parker famously takes his mask off and reveals, "I am Spider-Man." Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and J. Jonah Jameson sees that live on TV, and I think he's so angry he has a heart attack.
Oh God.
Because he finds out, the guy I hate the most in the world was this person I see almost as a son-like figure, because it's revealed that J. Jonah Jameson sees Peter Parker as a surrogate son. And it's revealed in that comic arc that J. Jonah Jameson feels betrayed by Peter Parker because he always went out of his way to buy any photos of Spider-Man he brought in, even if they weren't usable, just so that he'd always have an income.
he feels betrayed. So that shows he did care about Peter Parker.
Yeah, like just in his own gruff, thorny manner. But one of the things I like about that Civil War story is, as I mentioned, JJ gets so angry he has a heart attack, and he is so pissed at the idea of Spider-Man being Peter Parker that it sends him into a frenzy, and he decides to direct this anger at all superheroes. And one of the things he does in this fit of rage is build a giant robot spider that he sends to kill She-Hulk because she's having sex with his son. And maybe he would have gotten away with that if not for the fact he puts his face on the robot so She-Hulk knows it's him. It's just... So if you're gonna try and kill someone, that's the way to do it. And there are other dumb things JJ's done, such as he helped make the Scorpion one of Spider-Man's greatest and most enduring foes, because he was so angry about the idea of Spider-Man, he paid a failed journalist, like I think $10,000, we've discussed it in a Wiki Weekends, to undergo experimental surgery to become a man-scorpion.
Oh God.
And in the Spider-Man PS4 game, they address that, where they have JJ on air like, yeah, I did fund the experiment that created the Scorpion, but it's not my fault. I should not be held accountable for the actions of the Scorpion. Anyway, Spider-Man is responsible for all of the damage done by Rhino. It's like, oh God, no. He's one of them. Yeah, admittedly, he does fund the creation of a man-Scorpion and sends giant robot spiders to try and kill She-Hulk, but, we've all been there. The important thing to note, though, is that he does care about Peter Parker in his own way, and he is, at his core, a good guy who tries to occasionally kill people with giant robot spiders. We're here to talk about the character from the comics, Norman Osborn. We'll start, as we often do, with some basic biographical information about the character being discussed. We have a name, Norman Virgil Osborn, aliases, Carnage.
We can't escape.
It's just another character. It's such a boring fucking trope. Just, this character needs a boost, have them bond with Venom or Carnage. Because let's watch the taste of Carnage out of mouth. Some band names. We have Goblin King, Goblin Lord. I think I prefer that one because it sounds stupider. The Green Goblin, of course. The Iron Patriot. Overlord. The Red Goblin. Scryer. The Super Adaptoid. His other aliases include Commander Osborn, Director Osborn, the Kingpin of Crime, Mason Banks, Octo Goblin, and President Osborn. The thing is, I'm pretty sure there is like a Norman Osborn who becomes president or something like that. He should have done it in the Green Goblin outfit. I'd vote for that guy.
All I've got in my head right now is the image of Green Goblin on his glider swearing in the presidency.
Just in the suit. Yeah. Like at the presidential debate, he just throws the skeleton bomb.
Just flying around laughing his head off.
Yeah! Like, sir, what's your policy on education? Ah! Oh, before we move on though, Lucas, we have some unusual features here, which I'm going to note because it makes something in one of the movies make sense. Okay. A huge scar in the middle of his chest, which he gained after he was impaled by his own glider. And I don't know if they put that in because of the Raimi movies or the Raimi movies put it in because it happened in the comics. But
probably that, yeah.
Have you seen that in the Raimi movies though? Like, he doesn't get impaled in the chest. If you look, it gets him in the dick. Oh. If you look at the scene, it's in his dick. There's no other way to interpret where he gets hit by the glider. It's like right in the dick. Which means that when Harry Osborn found his dad, he had no dick. That's rough.
God.
That's a rough way to find your
And
dad.
then he went, Spider-Man took it.
Spider-Man took my dad's dick. And Lucas, do you want to just move on to powers and abilities? Oh, actually, no, we've got a personality section.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know what was Willem Dafoe channeling when he was chewing on that scenery. So, a ruthless and ambitious yet paranoid, troubled and disturbed man long before he took the Goblin formula. Norman Osborn looks up to tyrannical fascists such as Adolf Hitler and the Red Skull. His charisma and ambition have led him to become the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a time, rebranding it as Hammer, founded his own personal army, and even located the temple with no name to learn how to use magic. Magic Goblin. I'm terrified.
Magic Venom Goblin in an Iron Patriot suit, Karl.
Oh man, just flying, and he's the president.
And he's Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus as well.
And
It's
the
like,
King,
oh god,
and
put
the
them all
Kingpin.
together.
Norman is normally callous towards his son, dismissing him as a milquetoast disappointment, unworthy of inheriting his legacy. As a fucking goblin, man. You can't inherit my legacy, son. Ah! It's great. Initially harbouring ambition of conquering the criminal underworld as a result of Spider-Man's constant meddling with his plans, Osborn developed an intense obsession with destroying Peter Parker's life as thoroughly as possible. After being exposed to the Goblin formula, which enhanced his physical abilities at the cost of his sanity, Osborn adopted the persona of the Green Goblin, a grandiose and theatrical maniac. Powers and abilities. The Goblin formula is actually called that. The Goblin formula grants Norman Osborn the following abilities. Superhuman strength. Osborn can easily overpower a human by lifting them with one hand or throwing them through the air. He can also lift extremely heavy objects, crush and break through wood panels, bend metal, punch through glass without gaining injury. As shown on many occasions, he can physically match Spider-Man, even before bonding with the Carnage symbiote. Regenerative healing factor. If he does sustain injury, his body's increased metabolism allows to heal damaged tissue much faster. While not nearly as efficient as the healing powers of Wolverine, like what are? He also recovered from having over a dozen bombs exploded while webbed. Spider-Man webbed a dozen bombs to his chest.
Fucking hell, Spider-Man.
That is a dick move. It's like, that's basically how he dies in the film.
Well, I didn't kill him, his weapon killed him.
Yeah, I just jumped out of the way.
Calm down, Goku. Fucking hell.
The Goblin formula enhanced his mental faculties and creative talents. Aside from the physical advantages, the serum greatly enhanced his already highly above average intellect, making him capable of making progress in advanced areas of genetics, robotics, engineering, applied chemistry that most professional scientists can scarcely comprehend, let alone understand.
Is that improved intelligence worth having a goblin just screaming in your skull?
Because, for example, Osborn once created a cure for cancer, but instead used it as a weapon against Deadpool.
Oh,
He cured cancer and shot it at Deadpool.
no.
Why is Spider-Man's rogues gallery full of people who can cure cancer and choose not to? 'Cause that's where you get that great panel, isn't it? The guy who's a dinosaur. It's like, with this technology, you could cure cancer. Like, but I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs. Goblin Glider. We need to talk about this. He soon redesigned this device to an improved version called the Goblin Glider, capable of great maneuverability and speeds up to 90 miles an hour. It's capable of supporting about 400 pounds, including Norman's weight, and far more for very brief periods of time. Top speed and a full normal load will exhaust the fuel supply in about 1 hour. The main microprocessor-assisted manual controls were behind the head of the glider. Later modifications added voice-activated radio link controls. How fucking scary is the idea of the Green Goblin being stood there and just like, get in. And then just this giant metal bat. That's what he does in the debates. So, well, on my opponent, I think I've got one thing to say, and it is, duck. What?
No, or you just have it hovering right in front of the face as the answer to the question.
Just with the guns loaded. Who are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about Sandman. I think his name is it Flint Marko?
Well, not according to the wiki I'm reading from. It says William Baker.
Because I've just watched the Sam Raimi movies, and I'm like, is that what they called him in that movie?
I wondered why you were like, oh, do you want to talk about Sandman today? It's like,
Yeah.
Did you watch Spider-Man 3?
I had a rough time, Carl.
Okay, so we'll talk about Spider-Man 3, but first, we've got to talk about Mr. William Baker. So we have here, name, William Baker, the alias, the Sandman, and then aliases, Agent Sands. How is that an alias?
I don't know.
Got Sandy, Scrappy, his impersonations include Quarryman, and then Uncle Ben. Oh no. Uncle Ben, mate. Do you think he trolls Spider-Man by looking like Uncle Ben and melting away?
He's like, is he Clayface trolling Batman? Is that what that moment is?
Turning into Uncle Ben and then like the wind just blows him away. Do you like at the end of Infinity War?
Oh, just dust him.
I don't feel too good, Peter. Ah! Then we have here, other aliases include Flint Marko. There we go. Unless this is like the second Sandman, because this might be the second Sandman, we don't know. Sylvester Mann, William Flint Marko, and then physical characteristics: gender, male, irises, no eyes, hair, no hair, unusual features made entirely of sand. He's called Sandman. This is what I love about wikis, like how just matter of fact they're written, of just unusual features made of sand. That's not unusual in Marvel comics. Also, it's not unusual for a guy called Sandman. And we have here his occupation is an adventurer, bounty hunter, professional criminal. How scared would you be if you knew the Sandman was chasing you?
The thing is, all he has to do is wait for you to go to the beach.
Like, you're there, you're frolicking. Do you know what I imagine? It's like that moment in The Simpsons where like Chief Wiggum's like, crime never takes a holiday, and like Fat Tony's there with like all the guns on, and they're playing like volleyball.
But Daddy, you're on vacation.
Crime doesn't take a vacation.
Hey, careful, you'll pop it.
Oh, speaking of which, there's just a picture of here of like little baby Sandman at the beach. And you can tell that this man had a look from the time he was like I'm gonna guess like 8-year-old, because he's got the little striped underwear on. That man picked a look when he was like 8 and went, I'm sticking with it. Powers and abilities, and I've just seen here, Sandman's power grid, his strength and his durability are a 6.
Ooh.
Which puts him up there with like some of the heaviest hitters in Marvel, because the ranking system is 1, 2, 7, with 7 being like basically infinite. So his durability is fucking up there. And we have here powers, sand body. Sandman's body is an amorphous blob. I'll get there. Sandman's body is an amorphous blob of animated sand. He originally possessed the ability to mold the sand into a shape that appeared to be completely human, and from that form converts his body or parts of it back into sand at will. How much control does he have over this form, and how similar does it function to his previous state is not yet known.
That's what's really interesting to me, is that he's not a man always made... Well, he doesn't look like a man always made of sand. Like, he can become, you know, whatever his name is, Flint Marko or whatever again.
You can walk around looking like a human, but he is just living sand. Because that's one of the things that we've covered, like, you know, his physical description. He doesn't have eyes or hair, he's just living sand. And you made a reference to Clayface earlier, that's like spot on, because that villain, his existence is just torturous agony. Because he just, all he wants is his face back and to fuck his wife, and he can't. Sand control transferal. Since Marko's original body is dead, they just throw that in there. He is capable of giving control of his sand form to another body. He once used this ability with Spider-Man. Oh my God.
What? He can give his sand form to another being?
It says transfer control over the sand to another person, which he did with Spider-Man. You now imagine Spider-Man with like Sandman's powers.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Oh my God, that's so scary.
Because that means that Spider-Man is going to be basically assisted by 4 brick walls. Oh, Lucas, self-sustenance. Sandman no longer requires the need for food, air, or rest. Immortality. Sandman is immortal in the sense that he no longer ages. A possible future version of him had lived for 1 billion years.
Oh my God, no!
That is a fucking power. 1 billion years.
It's not seemingly as if there's a limited amount of sand that is Sandman, or that there's like some nucleus controlling the sand. It's just that he's, I don't know, he's like an ethereal sand object that could seemingly last 1 billion years.
Yeah, because you have that in the Raimi movie, don't you, where he like goes into the dump truck full of sand and it gets bigger.
Yeah.
And then he goes to like the construction site and gets big because he steals all the sand.
But it's just weird to me because it's not as if, like, you know, in a lot of things where, as I say, there's like some kind of nucleus that can be destroyed. It's like, what is Sandman?
Body conversion, sand. Sandman originally possessed the superhuman ability to convert his body into sand by mental command. The sand functioned identically to and appeared to be normal flesh. However, he could convert all or parts of his body into animated sand at will. His brain had attained subliminal awareness of all granulated particles in his body. What does it feel like when, like, your arsehole's granulated? That's a bad time.
I still want to know how he makes clothes.
It's not just that. He, like, makes clothes. He makes clothes with his own fashion sense on. I love that. Through conscious effort, he could affect the degree of molecular cohesion between the numerous adjoining surfaces of his particles and thus cause locomotion of discrete volumes down to the individual grain, which means that like, he could send an individual grain of sand directly into your eye.
Oh, and just have it like rolling around in your eye.
Do you know when you got like a little bit of grit in the corner of your eye there? He could do that with 2 separate bits of sand in each eye that are simultaneously going around the edge of your eyeball at all times. There appears to be no limit to how long the Sandman can remain in his sand state. If he had been rendered unconscious while in his sand state, he would remain in that state. So you knock him out and he's just sand. Then you just hoover him up. Although the relaxing of control over his particles will cause him to become an amorphous pile of sand, Sandman's mind continues to function in astral form even when he turned his head into sand, and even when the particles of sand composed his brain were widely scattered. The limit to how far the particles of his brain can be dispersed before he was unable to reassemble is not yet known. That means you're going there with a leaf blower and it still wouldn't work. Superhuman strength. As a consequence of having a body composed of sand, the Sandman possesses phenomenal superhuman strength. Really? I guess, like, you know, sand, like, when it's compacted, is quite strong.
If he's got control over every individual particle, he can make them as condensed as physically possible.
Yeah, and we have here that he's able to lift up to 85 tons, and then density control. His radically mutagenically altered body, that's a sentence in a comic book right there, an increased density enabled him to compact or loosen the particles that make up his form at will. Consequently, the Sandman can become as hard as sandstone or disperse his body so he becomes invulnerable to physical attacks. A favourite tactic of the Sandman is making himself slightly dispersed when an opponent punches him and then making himself rock solid, which he does in the Raven movie. It was Spider-Man's like, BOOM!
You know, apparently they got a boxer that had lost their hand to do that shot.
No, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah, and then they obviously just put like the CGI hand or whatever behind him. But yeah, that's the reason why it looks so good, because he could get his arm straight up to his chest.
Without hiding it. Shape-shifting. He could shift his sand state into any continuous shape he can imagine, including his forearms into weapons like hammers, maces, and large fists, forming ramming horns on his head, stretching, elongating, deforming, expanding, flattening, or compressing all portions of his body at will. Like Mr. Fantastic, he can phase through small openings. That's scary.
Yeah.
So what happens, like, the Sandman's after you, and you look in the corner of your room, just sand.
The thing is as well, you know, he could, like, say for example in this office here, he could be coming through every single window at the same time, and you just see sand like all coming through every orifice of the office.
Oh, Lucas, Glass Generation. He's learned some new tricks from, and I quote, the wizard, including altering the formation of his sand particles to reshape them into glass. This granting the ability to reflect light and energy off of him, so he can become a mirror. Mirror Master, baby. Sand conversion. So here's like the one that makes him super scary. He can convert common grains of sand around him into constituents of his body to replenish portions he might lose track of during battle. And it says that using this ability, he can increase his overall size and volume to an unknown limit. So if he goes to the Sahara Desert, he can just become Continent Man.
Oh my god. Like, that's the thing. In theory, he can just get all of the sand in the earth.
Yeah, like he should go over to Egypt and be a super criminal there instead of like New York.
Yeah, there's not much sand over
Well,
in this
really, he's got
York.
like Los Angeles. Go somewhere near the sea. Sand clones. Thanks to having such good mental control over his molecules, he'll have create duplicates of himself, each one capable of acting on its own, committing many crimes. Like, what does that look like though? Like when you're chasing down a mugger and you grab him and he just explodes.
But that's the thing that is now I've got, when you said the Sahara Desert, is just got an image of Flint Marko walking into the desert, and then an army of him coming back. Just what is...
Wall crawling, he was somehow capable of using sand to crawl up walls. Like, somehow. He's fucking sand. Weaknesses, water. Sandman's weakness that makes him most vulnerable is water. Water can soften his sand granules, therefore, Sandman cannot control them and has to wait for them to dry. Oh no. So, Luke, I'm just going to read out the next two words, and I want you to react however you feel is appropriate. The soul molecule.
What? Is this saying that one individual molecule is like the soul of the sun?
Over the years, Spider-Man managed to discover that Sandman's consciousness is located in a single grain of sand, which has Marko's brain pattern and is responsible for commanding all the other grains of sand. With proper instruments, it can be induced to different ideas which make Marko change form against his will. If that grain is separated from the others and isolated, he can't recover his mass. Which means Spider-Man, if he got that grain of sand, could just put it in a little glass jar and be like, that is the strongest supervillain in New York. Equipment. The Sandman briefly used a suit he created with Reed Richards' stolen equipment that he used to mix chemicals with his sand to create new effects. Some of the chemicals could make his sand into a slippery puddle, a sandstorm, solidify him like a brick wall, adhering to vertical walls, and coat him with a substance that would turn him into poisonous powder. And then trivia, Sandman doesn't have a driver's license. He's sand. The soul molecule.